Shavua Tov. We continue our series of lectures for self-improvement. We spoke past shiurim about two qualities, two characters that a person should be very careful with. The first one we spoke about the gava. We gave 2 lectures about this. Another 3 lectures we gave about the anava. Gava, it means the pride, self-pride, right? And anava, it means humbleness. Tonight, we're going to speak about the next trait that a person should have. It's called BUSHA. What's BUSHA? In translation from Hebrew, BUSHA means a shame. Okay, from most probably you're very familiar with the feeling of it, or maybe not, because certain people, they just destroyed this quality of their soul, and they have no shame whatsoever, and that's how people call them. You have no shame, right? They bold faces, they have no shame, they could do anything they want, they could step on anyone they want. And this quality, the person has to acquire to his soul and to be with this quality always. Why? Because of that quality, person would save himself from averot, from sins. Because that's the only way we could save ourselves. Because when we have a shame, we don't sin fast. Because we have a shame. Now, where shame comes from? The first time in Torah, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the word shame. Where the shame is mentioned in Torah? Do you know where? It says that Adam and Chava, both of them, they were naked. Velo yitboshashu. They didn't have shame of each other. Why? Do you know why they didn't have shame? The reason? Says Rashi, velo yitboshashu. Why? Because they didn't have a da'at, lahavin, they didn't have a knowledge to understand what a shame is. They thought that's how it is. As we see apple, as it grows, an orange, we see animals as they are. They saw themselves, and that's how we created. So how come people today, they walk dressed? Because they have a shame. So Adam Arishon didn't have shame, it says. Lo yitboshashu. But then, once they made the Avera, once they made the Chet Adam, they made a sin that Hashem asked them not to do. They ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What happened? Something changed. It says Adam Arishon, he heard Hashem coming, and he started to hide himself in the trees of the Eden, right? Of the garden. Why? Why it says so? What, something changed? Is there any button to the person to have a shame, on and off? What happened? Says Rashi, he got a da'at, tov v'ra. He started to understand things. So shame comes from a da'at of the person. A fruit of the understanding, knowledge of the person, a sense that a person has is a shame. Now, really, the first time the word boshet, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, we see it from first word of the Torah, Bereshit. In 70 Tikkunim of Zohar, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says Bereshit, Boshet Yira. If you take the Bereshit, you split into 2 words, it becomes Boshet Yira. Why Hashem created the world? For 2 best qualities that a person should have. What? It's a Boshet. What's a Boshet? It's a shame and Yira. And also fear of greatness of Hashem, not of punishment. Do you understand that? Now, how to know if there is a boshet or not? How could person see if person has a shame or not? You know, real shame is? You could see it in the small children. Why? Because they have a natural bullshit. They have a natural shame. When they say something wrong, there's an inner voice inside of them that tells them you were wrong. And they would be ashamed. They would be ashamed. And kids, they do have such a feeling. Problem is, once the person starts to grow, the shame of the person fades. You know what the fading means? Because he personally destroys this quality inside of him. He destroys the quality of shame inside of himself. How? He just says to himself, why I should be shamed? I could do this, everybody does it, so why I should not? You understand? It's one of the ways to explain it. In Sefer Orchot Tzadikim, he says one of the best qualities the person should acquire to himself, it's a quality of shame. Shara BUSHA. And I'll show you in Torah, in Tanakh, how it's important to have such a quality for the person. Not only to have a good shalom bayit, just to be a good person with good qualities. A boshet is one of the important ones. Once Adam and Chava started to understand that they are naked, they acquired the quality of boshet. They started to be embarrassed. They started to have a shame. They started to clothe themselves. They started to dress themselves. They didn't want to be naked anymore. So what do we learn from here? That when a person gets a dot, when he gets a knowledge, which comes from a chokhmah and connecting bina together. Chokhmah, it's a wisdom. Bina, it's understanding. Once they connect together, you get a da'at, sense, common sense, that tells you what to do. And common sense, the first thing told them to do what? You have to hide yourself. You're naked. That's a common sense. You're naked. You cannot stand like this in front of Hashem. Since then, we have Alacha in Shulchan Aruch, that naked you're not allowed to bless, you're not allowed to say barachot, you're not allowed to pronounce the name of Hashem when you're naked. Why? Because that's common sense. The person understands he has a shame. It's a shameful to stay naked. Certain people lost this shame because they killed it within themselves with their bad deeds. How much does it take to take away a shame? Gemara says, when a person does first time in his life sin, he knows that he made a sin. He did something wrong. He feels very bad that he did it. He feels shame that he did it in front of Hashem. This feeling called shame, like Adam HaRishon. But once he repeats it second time, and third time, after a couple of times it becomes for him, keheter, Gemara says, it becomes for him as permitted. As you're allowed to do this. Meaning that he killed the shame. That's it, you're allowed to. It says in the Torah, Avraham Avinu, he never saw his wife. How beautiful she is. They were married for already over 10 years. And once they were going to Egypt, they were passing river. He saw her in reflection of the water. He says, I see they are so beautiful. She was so beautiful and never saw her. Why, Rashi says? Because he had a boshet. He has a certain shame to look at his wife. He said, Rabbi, it's crazy. What is this? I should not look. You're right, it's a higher level. It's a very high level to reach. But you see what boshet could bring to people? To become Hasidim like Avraham Avinu. He didn't even look at his wife. He loved her. He respected her. But he never saw her detailed. Never. Now we saw her details. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Abraham Avinu comes to the Mitzrayim. They ask him, who is this? He says, this is my sister. Paro takes her. How could you take somebody's woman that you don't know even? Who is he? What is he? You just ask one question and take away their woman? How could Paro do such a thing? No shame. And that's why he got punished. And then Paro returned the Sarah and gave her presents and said, get out of here. Get out of this country faster. Don't stay in this country because people, they have no shame. That's why Egypt called Ervat Haaretz. Egypt called nakedness of the world. And nakedness, no shame. And that's why you would find all kind of impurity, all kind of impurity in Egypt. Witchcraft, black magic, znut, adultery, idol worshipping, murder, anything you want in Egypt. So, Rabotai, so what do you say? What do you see? Now, it says that the boshet panim of the person, the busha, it has 4 parts. What 4 parts? Okay. He says like this, the busha has 4 parts. One kind of busha, it's to have a fear, to have a shame of people, that the people should not see that a person sins, but he doesn't care what Hashem sees. So that person, on people, he would be good, but inside of his house, he will do whatever he wants. That's the most worst case with this person. And that's why when a great sage was about to pass away, the students came to him to ask him for blessing. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. They said, Rabbeinu, can you teach us Orchot Chaim? Can you teach us, please, how to live good life? He said, I'll pray to Hashem that the fear of the people, that the fear of Hashem should be on you like a fear of the people. You understand what he said? You should be afraid of Hashem to do something wrong like you're afraid of people. He said, that's it? That's what you tell us? So, Alvai Shikemu, Alvai. He said, I pray to Hashem that that's to this level, you should reach to this level. And then we'll see what happens. But at least that. Why? Because if you have a boshet panim in front of people and you have no shame not in front of people, it means it's fake. It's not good. At least it will stop you doing wrong things in front of people, you know. At least that. At least one half. But it's still it's fake. Real boshet, real shame is when you are ashamed even you are alone. B'chadrei chadarim. You're not ashamed of people, you're ashamed of Hashem. A woman calls me up and she asks me a question. She's tzanua, she's religious, everything is good. So Rabbi, he says, summertime is very hot. Can I just go with the short sleeves at my house? It's a good question, no? She asked me. It's hard for her. In her house, nobody sees her besides her husband. So what's wrong with that? So I try to understand on which level of religiousness of that woman, because if she's not so much religious, it's very hard to explain her what busha is, what shame is. And especially, she would tell you what I should be ashamed of. You know, that's a regular question they ask you. What I should be ashamed of? It's my husband. Why Adam HaRishon and Chava, they were ashamed? It's their father. He created them. Why they should be ashamed? You know why? Because that's a natural shame that a person has. Even at home, I said, she was pretty religious, so I said to her, even at home you try to be tzanuah. You have to be modest even at home. Why, she tells me? Nobody sees me. I said, nobody sees you? Hashem sees you. Well, Rabbi, you could say this for everything. I said, you're right, you should say it for everything. Hashem sees you. What do you say in tefillah? Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzevaot, Meloch ol haaretz kevodo. The Holy One, Hashem, His greatness fulfills the world. He is everywhere. So if He is everywhere, why should not have a shame of Him? Why? You also at home should be tzanuah. Now, so what's the benefit to be tzanuah? What's the benefit to have a shame? Huh? Tell me, what's the benefit? You know what's the benefit? Gemara says, there was a woman, her name was Kimchit. This lady, she was so careful with the tzniut, she was so careful with the modesty, that even in the house, when she used to undress, she used to cover herself, that her hair should not be revealed to the walls of the house. Do you have a shame? She had such a shame. She had such a tzniut. And what happened? She had 7 boys, one after the other. And all of them, her husband was Kohen. Her husband was Kohen. And all of them, they were Kohanim Gdolim. Shimshu b'kuhuna gdola. Could you imagine what it is? What kind of zchut is that? A lady, because she had a zchut, a merit of mitzvah of tzniut, of modesty, which comes because of shame, she had 7 sons who were a highest priest in Kohanim Gdolim in Bet HaMikdash. Could you imagine the honor she got? No? What do you think about that? So some woman would say, well, my husband is not Kohen. Okay, fine. Even though your husband is not Kohen, but at least your children are going to be great people. You understand? Today's society, we see when we go to outside world, how people dress. You see, respected people, they never dress unrespected. So Rabbi, what do you call unrespected dress? I'll tell you what. Anything that regularly out of standards of respect to other person is unrespected. An example, when you go to a regular teller of the bank, it used to be, tellers used to dress up very respectfully, everything was covered. Today they don't care how they dress, but still the manager of the bank, he cannot allow himself to dress this way. Why? Let's say there's a lady manager. Oh man, have you ever saw a manager of the bank, he comes in a shorts? Have you ever, or t-shirt, applied to our bank? No, you never saw such a thing. Why? Because he's a manager. Now, I don't know why he's dressing up like that, but the only reason that comes up to my mind is because of he's a manager. If he would not be a manager, he would not be dressed like this. You see, in a goyim, their possession in the world forces them to dress accordingly. Once they lose this possession, he doesn't care how he dresses, right? In our culture, it's opposite. We have a quality that called BUSHA, a quality that called shame, and because of that quality, we have to be dressed normally. Not because of somebody going to talk about me or whatever. No, because of me. Because Hashem looks at me. For some people, probably I'm talking things, not here, but if somebody listens to this lecture and says, Rabbi, it's too much already. Come on. You're going to tell how to dress up to people? No, I'm not going to tell you anything. You decide for yourself what kind of level of shame you should have. Because once you lose the shame, person, it opens the door to any wicked thing in the world when a person doesn't have a shame. Now, how powerful is the shame? The shame is so powerful, Rabotai, that sometimes it could kill the people of the feeling if they feel the shame. And we see that in Torah, in the story of Yosef and his brothers. Gemara says, when brothers of Yosef came to Egypt to look for him, you know the story, what happened. They sold him to Egypt. And then, after 22 years, they went to see him. Where is he? And where did they go to look for him? No, do you know where? To the places where they do bad things with women. Why? Yosef was beautiful, so they think they would find him only in such a houses. They were wrong. Yosef caught them, brought them to one, all the brothers brought them to one place and started to talk to them. And they didn't recognize him because of two things, it says. They didn't know language he spoke, because he spoke an Egyptian language with them. And Kimelitz benotam, it says there's a translator between them, interpreter. Right? And the second, when he left, he was without a beard. Now when they saw him, he was with a beard. So you ask yourself, wait, with the beard, it says without the beard he was looking like Yaakov. When he used to put beard, so what? If he puts the beard, how he would look like? Exactly like Yaakov Avinu. So don't you recognize somebody who looks like 2 drops of water? Exactly like your father. Wouldn't you ask a question? Excuse me, what's your last name? Are you Israeli? Maybe you have a family, you know? At least ask this question. There's a person next to them, in front of them, a person who looks at like 2 drops of water like their father. A twin brother of their father. And they don't ask questions. But when Yosef revealed himself of the whole story, it says they could not answer a word. You know the story, what happened? Yosef said, Yehuda wanted already to destroy with his brothers all Egypt. And Yosef said, if I'm not going to reveal myself now to them, so the whole thing going to be destroyed here. So it's better if I reveal myself. And Yosef said, Ani Yosef achichem, ha'od abi chai. I'm your brother Yosef. My father is still alive. Why you ask this question? What has to do with your father? And already many times before that he asked, Shalom avichem, your father is okay. He asked them already many times. Why are you asking again, ha'od abi chai, my father is still alive? Because he said, I'm looking like my father, and you don't recognize me, meaning he died already. So you don't remember. In those times they didn't have pictures. He's already dead, so you don't remember how your father looked like. So you look at me, and you don't recognize me, because I look exactly like my father. Ha'od abi chai, my father is still alive, that you don't recognize me? And it says, v'lo yachlu la'anot oto. They could not answer him. Why? Because of BUSHA, this feeling of BUSHA, Rabotai, this feeling of shame. What did they do to their brother? We say in the Tefillah, Rabotai, interesting thing. שלא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד. In Shema Israel, we say we should not be shamed, we should not be embarrassed in front of you, Hashem. Shame, it's a powerful thing, Rabotai. What we should not be embarrassed? The embarrassing and shame of that we went against the one who created the world. Because after 120, when we go upstairs, after 120 years when we go upstairs, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say the same thing that Yosef said to his brothers. Hashem is going to say, Ani Hashem Elokecha. What Yosef said? I'm your brother. And what Hashem going to say? I'm your God. I'm one who created you. I'm the one who supported your life support. You lived because of my energy in this world. Why did you go against me? Why? You didn't have a shame? It's a common sense to have a shame. Are you not ashamed to go against me? Hashem does for us so much good. So much good Hashem does for us, Rabotai. If we could only imagine how much does it take, how many processes in the body of the person does it take only one breath. You breathe this one time, and you know how many millions of molecules of oxygen go through the bloodstream. Only one time, and Hashem supports all of it. And that's why you're alive. And we don't even pay attention to that. We sleep, we breathe. We wake up, we breathe. David HaMelech, after he finished his job, holy job, he wrote Tehillim. That's a holy job David HaMelech did in his life. 5 books of Tehillim, they correspond to 5 books of Torah. First is a Bereshit, second is, you know that? The last pasuk David HaMelech writes in Tehillim, Kol HaNeshama Ta'haleliyah Hallelujah. Sages translate this pasuk to us, and they explain, Al Kol Nishima Unshima Heve Me'aleh LaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't read Kol HaNeshama, Kol HaNishima Ta'haleliyah Hallelujah. Every breath that you breathe, you should praise Hashem. Every breath that you breathe. So don't you find that Rabotai, BUSHA, it's something very strong. I'll tell you an example. A young man, he goes on a motorcycle, you know, and sometimes you like to show off how you drive the motorcycle on high speed. You know, you see those guys, right? In the first moment you see in front of the building, and then suddenly you see in front of the stop sign. 1 second, and he stops already there. That's how we drive so fast. And sometimes when you see the girls, he wants to show off even more. Gaiba, his pride doesn't let him to stay calm. He has to show off. How he shows off? He picks it up. Once, I was driving in Israel on a bus to Yerushalayim on Friday, and I saw 2 motorcycles going like crazy. Bus was going 80 already. They were going 120 probably. And both of them, in front of the bus, they picked up on a you know, when they pick up the motorcycle on a one wheel, and you drive like this, and everybody was looking at them, and Chris screamed, "Crazy! What are you doing on such a high speed?" Why they did it? Personally, I thought it's a machablim, but anyway, I thought it's the terrorists. But they were not terrorists. They just wanted to show off, so people on the bus would be entertained by that. In the black masks, you know, black hats, and they drive. Crazy. So what happens if they fall? In front of girls. That guy, young boy, he goes, unfortunately, he could not do it. And he falls. Baruch Hashem, he didn't damage himself, but at least he has a pain. Would he show that he has a pain in front of girls or not? Huh? He would not. Boys know that. Boys go like this. Why? Why he would not show the pain? Because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. He wanted to show off. At least don't show off now the pain. How he's going to stand up from the back to the legs, you know, like nothing happened. Going to take his bike and go under the corner. After he goes under the corner, over the corner, he sits there, why, please, call out Salah. Now, the bullshit, the shame that he had there, made an anesthesia to his pain. You couldn't imagine? The pain of the bullshit, the pain of shame took over the pain of body. And that's how Rambam, in Shmone Perakim, he proves that there is a soul to the person. The person is not only the body. A person has a soul. How to prove? He says there is a body pain and there is a soul pain. One of the soul pains, it's a shame. You hear? When a person is ashamed, he's embarrassed. It's such a big pain. I was supposed to speak about this, and Hashem let me experience this in a store before Shabbat. I stay on a line in the store before Shabbat. Suddenly one woman crazy goes like this with big carriage of the shopping. She gets and she screams, "I need a manager." So the manager comes out. "What happened?" "I'm not coming to the store anymore." He says, "Why?" "I'm making here shopping." And I'm watching this story. I'm making here shopping, and what? The person outside, your worker outside, he embarrassed me publicly. So she's now ready to bomb hold the store just for that shame. "I'm not buying you anything. Take everything back. Give me money back." And everything, etc. You know what the story finishes like. Why? He embarrassed her. He embarrassed her publicly. You see such a pain? You could imagine the pain when Hashem comes to you and says, "I'm your God. You were wrong. You were wrong. You did wrong things. And you thought you were right." So what do you do in this case? How do you feel in this case? You cannot answer. That's why Gemara says, "En etzah, ve'en tfuna, ve'en chokhmah neged Hashem." There's no answer. There's no wisdom. There is no anything against Hashem, because Hashem is going to show you. He doesn't have to even prove you anything. He's going to show you that you're wrong. Once, I heard a lecture, very nice lecture. I didn't know who was the speaker, but it was a nice lecture. He said how they show to a person his problems and how they prove him that that's not good. He says they do the same thing that Natan HaNavi did with David HaMelech. You know, David HaMelech, he saw a beautiful woman. She was permitted to him, Bathsheba. And she was the one who was supposed to get married to him from 6 days of Bereshit. That's how, when Hashem created the world, He created David, He created his wife. His wife was supposed to be Bathsheba. But what happened? Because the story of Goliath, he didn't know how to chop off his head. He said, whoever going to open his iron, iron thing that he has over his body, in order to chop off his head, to him going to be girl of Israel as a wife. And Uriah Hitti, he was weapon carrier of the Goliath. He showed him. And when Goliath was killed, Hashem said, David, daughters of Israel, they have care for you. What? They are honorless? They're not honorless for you. Your wife going to be his wife. And Hashem took zivug of Bathsheba, gave it to Uriah. But Uriah, he was castrated. He could not have any relationship with Bathsheba. And Bathsheba used to live with him like this. Till Uriah died, and then David HaMelech took her as a wife. But the way David HaMelech did it was not good in front of Hashem. According to Torah, was everything clean. She was divorced woman, because Uriah, before he went to the war, he gave her a get. And the get was on condition, if he doesn't come in 90 days, the get would be as a Jewish divorce, and she's free to marry anyone she wants. And already 4 months passed. Over 120 days passed already, and he didn't come home, so she was divorced. It was okay for David to take her. David HaMelech took her. Then Natan HaNavi comes to him and tells him story. You know, king, there is an injustice in your kingdom. What's injustice? That there is two people live next to each other. The rich, the wealthy one, and the poor one. The wealthy one has a lot of sheep, a lot of herds, everything he has. But the poor one, the one who is in the poverty, he has only one sheep, And you know what happened in the story? Once, this wealthy one invited a lot of guests. And he said, what should I do for the dinner, for those guests? And he decided to take this one only sheep, the only sheep that this person had, he decided to take it away from him and shecht, to slaughter him, to prepare for the dinner for his guests. You could imagine what he did? He took one sheep and slaughtered it and fed his guests, even though he has so many. Even though he has so many sheep. And it says, you know, Natan HaNavi made it so juicy. David HaMelech is a king. He decides what's going on in his country. David HaMelech stands up and swears. He says, Ben Mavet Hu, this person shall die. Ve'et kivsa yeshalem arba'atayim. And this sheep he should pay 4 times more and he should die. Now, from where do you die for the stealing sheep? Is there, according to Allah, if somebody stole the sheep and shechted, how much you have to pay? Yeah, you have to pay 4 times more. Meaning you have to pay him 4 sheep. Like the first one. There is no death penalty. How could David HaMelech stand up and say he's chayav mita? Because he's the king. He says, in my kingdom, once you teach people, it should not be again. People should be afraid. And that's what David HaMelech decided to do. And you can imagine what Natan HaNavi replied. He said 2 words. Ata ha'ish. You're the person. You're the wealthy one. How many wives do you have? You have so many wives. And you took Bathsheba from Uriah? Even though she is divorced. Even though she's permitted. How could you permit yourself to do such a thing? She's the only one for him. And now you took her. Now you took her and he cannot get married to her anymore. Why did you do such a thing? You see, according to Allah, everything was pure. Everything was good. But the problem was, it's not straight way in front of Hashem. And David says, I didn't sin to anyone. Lecha levadecha chatati, v'hara be'einecha asiti. I did only sins between me and Hashem. It's not according to my level. I should not have been behaving like this. I should not behave like this, David HaMelech says. And what David replied? Chatati. He says, I'm ashamed. I sinned. I didn't do a good thing. And right away Natan HaNavi says, V'gam Hashem he'ivir chatatcha lo tamut. Hashem decided you're not going to die. What did he tell him? When we come after 120 years, that's what the story compared to. They show us a movie, so to say, so to speak. In that movie, they will show you your life, but with the different people playing it. And they would tell you, can you judge this person? Can you see how do you think, what does he deserve? And that world is only truth. You cannot lie. And a person says, this person, you should punish him like this and like this for his bad deeds. And they say, can you wait a moment? We'll show you again the movie. Maybe you change your mind. And they show him again the movie now with the real people. Who is a real person? It's you. And they show you how you approach your friends, how you approach your wife, your husband, everything. They show you everything. And then they show you the same story. And they say, what do you think we should do in this case? It's the same case. But you are there. Now you start to say, I'm sorry, I didn't know. You know what, maybe you should be easy on me. You know? Take it easy, come on.
Excuses.
Yeah. Ata ha'ish. First they tell you a story, like Natan HaNavi. And then you pass in halacha, he should die. And they say, it's you. We show you now, really. Real story we show you now. The only thing you could say is chatati. Say, you're right, I made a sin. You're right, I made a sin. I didn't do the right thing. That's what embarrassment we're praying for. Shelo nebosh v'lo nikalem. We should not be embarrassed at that moment. You imagine persons showing, Rabotai, if you are tzaddik, if you are a righteous one, and you're going to do everything according to halacha, according how Hashem wants you to do it. And they show you your movie. He says, it's unbelievable, tzaddik, look at him, how he behaves. Look at him, how he prays, as a kavanah. Look at that tzniut. Look at that chinuch banim. Look at that Shabbat. Look at that, how wife addresses her husband. How feminine she is. Look at that, husband, how he loves his wife. Look at that. It's a beautiful story. Who is those people? Who are they? And they say, it's you. Ashrecha. Happy as you are. That's you. It's exactly you. That's how you used to be. That person has a self-satisfaction, Rabotai, inside of him. Like ever have been such a satisfaction to him. I did what Hashem wanted. I did it. I passed the test. And what going to be with the people who didn't pass? BUSHA uchlima. They're going to have such a big embarrassment. And Rambam says, embarrassment, the shame, it's a pain of the soul. That's a proof that the pain of the soul takes over the pain of the body. From that story that I told you before. That's a pain of the soul. So we should be careful to put somebody in such a situation, to embarrass someone. There are certain things embarrasses others. Be so between husband and a wife, brothers and sisters, right? Once I saw a brother calling a sister, she was a little bit overweight. A little bit, not so much. He called her a cow. For me, it was embarrassing hearing that. Most probably he thought I don't understand the language they speak. But I did understand that. And for me, it's very embarrassing to hear such a thing. How could you say to the person a cow? Why? Because you lost your shame. You're not ashamed. You're not ashamed that Hashem watching you. You're not ashamed that Hashem seeing that. And that's the worst thing, Rabotai, to lose the shame. Kids, teach the kids to be shamed. It's very good feeling. It's very good quality. Why? Because of shame, they're not going to sin fast. There are many mitzvot connected to the shame, Rabotai. Many mitzvot. There's another story in Torah that talks about how people lost their shame. For the sake of God. They came to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, Moshe and Aaron, why you become a generals of the nation? You the only one. Moshe, you became a king of the nation. Aaron became a highest priest. Who was this party? Party of Korah. Remember the story? How could Korah come and do such a thing to Moshe Rabbeinu? How could do such a thing? And for sake of God, to make a machloket, because he lost his shame. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu says. V'nachnu ma, we're nothing. You come against us, Korah, what we are. We're nothing. Not who we are, what we are. Moshe Rabbeinu put himself lower than his fathers. That's what Gemara says. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I put myself lower than my fathers. Avraham Avinu says, Anochi afar va'efer. Avraham Avinu said, I'm a dust of the land. Dust is still something, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Nachnu ma, we're nothing. You coming against us, Korach? You lost your shame? How Bnei Israel made Rabotai Egel HaZahav? How? You know how? Very easy. They lost their shame. Because when Hashem came and gave a Torah, there's certain mitzvot were connected to shame. Like mitzvat arayot. You know the arayot? Adultery. Hashem said certain relationship, intimate relationship, prohibited. And the people said, what? How? I'm not allowed to be with my sister anymore? I'm not allowed to be with my aunt. I'm not allowed to be with my, I don't know, whoever. Whoever is prohibited. I'm not allowed to be. That's what you say? Fine. So we don't need such a God, they said. What do? We create a new one. The new one who's going to permit us everything that we want. Because they lost a shame, they made, Gemara says, Lo asu Israel et ha'egel, ela la'atir lahem arayot. They made the egel in order just to have adultery with these prohibited relationships that Hashem commanded not to have any relationship with. Just for that reason. Reject the entire Torah just to permit the adultery. Not to have shame is the same thing. It says, why it started the slavery? Why started slavery in Egypt? The reason of that. Do you know why? Because they lost their shame. How? It says, "Bnei Israel paru v'ishritu v'yirbu v'yatzmu b'mod meod v'timale ha'aretz otam." Bnei Israel, they multiply so much that the whole land of Egypt started to fill up with them. Where they used to live in Egypt? In one territory that called Goshen, a Jewish ghetto. Goshen. And suddenly, after Goshen, they started to come out to other places. Rashi says to which places they started to go? To theaters, to stadions, to all kind of philosophical lectures of Egyptians, to see how to do witchcraft and whatever. And it bothered Paro. He says, listen, those people I never heard of, those people I never seen, how they coming out? Maybe they be multiplying so much and they're going to make a revolution and overthrow me. So therefore I have to make them slaves. The way to keep the people working, tired, so they will not do revolution against me. That's what Paro said. Why? We lost our BUSHA. To lose the BUSHA, Rabotai. We went out the places we were not supposed to go. Why? We lost this shame. And Jewish people don't belong in such places. But Rabbi, it's kosher. We don't belong in such places. No matter how kosher is this, Rabotai. We don't belong in Yankee stadiums for the baseball game. We don't belong there. Why? It's fun. It might be fun, but we don't belong in such places where people curse. People, from two groups fight because that group on the stadium didn't win another group. They fight, they curse, they drink alcohol beverages, and they do whatever they want there. What do you say? They lost the shame. You go to news, you see the shame that the Gentiles have. They would show that the one lady went nude, naked, on a stadium because she is for that command. And they show it on news. Rabbi, how do you know that? Do you look at that? No. They tell me stories about this. They tell me stories. Whoever looks at the news says, Rabbi, you know what happened? One lady went nude. Why? No shame. No shame. And since there's no shame, there's no boundary to what you could do. You could do anything. And that's the sickness of our generation, Rabotai. We have no shame. An example would be when you stand in line and somebody would go over you and pray in front of you and even not ask you, excuse me, can I go in front of you? Just like, I'm not obligated to ask you. Once I hit such a story. So I said to this lady, why do you do so? Why do you do so? She says, so what? She goes to me. I said, oh, okay, if you don't feel anything, if you don't feel, so what I should talk to you? The person doesn't have shame. You have nothing to talk about this woman. You cannot talk to a person. Shame comes from Rabotai, from Da'at. Shame comes from common sense. When the people don't have common sense, they don't have knowledge, they have no shame. Therefore, you talk to a person who doesn't get anything. So you should not talk to such a people. They have no shame. Some people, they use a vulgar language. You know this, street language, and the words of F, L, M, O, P. I don't know what the language they have. Mother, father, and etc. They use those words constantly, and it becomes a part of the lexicon that they use constantly. And sometimes they cannot even stop themselves. They got so much to this language. Why? Because they have no shame. And Talmud says, whoever used those words, you should suspect him that he does those things. Do you understand that? Whoever uses such expressions, you should suspect him that he does such things. That's why so easy he uses them. Since he has no embarrassment, he has no shame to say it, so he has no shame to do so. Do you understand? And that's how the mentality of Goyim got into our nation. Mentality of Goyim with no shame got into our nation. I'll tell you a story about the shame that a girl had. It says, once one girl was kidnapped by Sultan, one of the Arab sultans. Sulika, her name was Sulika, Jewish girl. She was very beautiful, very modest and beautiful. So they took her to Sultan, and Sultan says, I would like you to be my wife. But before you become my wife, you have to accept Muhammad and Islamism, you know, Quran. You have to accept it. She said, no, I'm not going to accept it. I'm Jewish, I'm not going to. So listen, if you have a chance to accept it and you don't accept it, you know what Quran says? If a person has a chance to accept the Muslim belief, and he does not accept, he has to die. He's, how do you call this? A person, unbeliever. Infidel, right? They call it infidel. You have a chance. You're beautiful. You're going to be my wife. I give you everything. No. If no, I kill you. You understand? I'll kill you, he said. She said, fine, kill me. I'm not going to be. So they started to torture her, this girl. 15 years old. They tortured to such an extent that they said, okay, she's not going to do anything, fine, we're going to tie her legs to the side, to the end of the horse, and we're going to go around the city, and her body would be scraped and beaten on the stones through all the streets, and everybody should see, to those infidels, what happens with them. You see how they used to force the fear? She said, fine, you're going to do it with me? Fine. But can I ask you, when they started to do, she did like this to the Sultan. Sultan said, stop, stop, stop. She probably wants it now. She called the Sultan and said, yes, what do you want? You want to become a Muslim? She says, no. I just wanted to ask you a favor. Yes, what's your favor? Can you give me sikot bitachon, safety pins? Can you give me a safety pins? He says, what do you need it for? He says, can you give me, before you do it to me with a horse, can you give me safety pins? So he said, okay, that's our last wish we saw that before the death. We have to do it, right? We humanitarian, you know, we have to do whatever last wish before the death. So they brought her safety pins, needles. She took the safety pins and she needled her skirt to her body. then when they're going to be bringing her on a horse, running with a horse, no part of the body would be revealed. And when they saw that, Rabotai, they were shocked. Why? I'm Jewish, I'm not going to be Muslim. Now there is the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, right? So I have to do this mitzvah proper way. Doesn't matter how you die for Kiddush Hashem. You're right, it doesn't matter. Even you die different way, most immodest way, it's Kiddush Hashem. No, she said, I need to make it kosher way, this mitzvah. How? Because she had a shame. Even they kill me, I have to be tzanua. No, Rabbatai, what do you say? Today people, they forgot what to be tzanua, even they don't kill them. They own shame, they ruined it. They're not shamed. Even old ladies, where the body is already, you cannot even imagine who's going to be attracted to this body. They go like half naked on the streets. Why? That's a style. Style called no shame. That's the worst thing could hit Am Yisrael, Rabotai. We nation that always had a shame. We were never aggressors, Rabotai. We always had a shame. Not like all other nations tried to show us to the world. Recent war in Israel. Recent war. Israel performed precise, exact operation against the highest terrorist of the world in Palestine. And how the world reflected that to the people. We are aggressors, we kill people. And 3 people die in Israel. From what? From blindly thrown rockets to Israel. Blindly, to civilians. Israel hits the exact targets to make less any civilian casualties, right? Casualties. But they throwing in blind rockets and they get to the civilians. No. Nothing. We're aggressors. No boshet panim. No busha. No busha, Rabotai. There is no embarrassment. People see that the whole world is wrong. People hear this Iranian president that he says there were never Holocaust. And everybody keeps quiet. Nobody talks about that. Why? Because no busha. People lost this treaty. People lost this trade. Lost the busha. There's no embarrassment. How to develop this in the person? If the person wants to develop proper busha in himself, first rule for that, Rabotai, Shiviti Hashem le'niri tamid. Always to imagine that Hashem is against you. Hashem is next to you. Hashem in front of you. Always. It's very hard, I know. If you need reminders for yourself, that's why we have a mezuzah on each corner of our house. On each doorpost of our house we have a mezuzah. It's a reminder. I'm here. I'm with you. I'm guarding you. I'm watching you. I give you so much good in this life, Hashem says. And you should behave good, like a good son, like a good daughter. It's not my fault that you're going away from my table, Hashem says. By bad behavior. Making averot chas v'sholom. Walking immodestly. You're losing your shame. Why? You reveal yourself to Yetzer Hara, and therefore you do whatever you want. Little girls, young girls, lost their shame already today. Rabotai. Why? Because they see the older generation, previous generation, how they behave, and they think that's the way to behave. It's already genetically modified, if you will. It's genetically modified by them. That's how you should be. I'm not speaking about the public schools with their behavior there, where the teachers, they suggest to their students to use anything that will prevent a girl getting pregnant after parties. instead of teaching them moral qualities of BUSHA, of embarrassment, and any other things, what they teach them, how not to get pregnant. As long as you're not getting pregnant. Everything is okay. You could do anything you want. But don't get pregnant. Why? Because it's embarrassing. It's not needed for you now to get pregnant. Go see statistics. What's the rate of pregnancies in the school? 14, 15, 13, 14, 15, 17, till 17 years old. Go see rate. You're going to be stunned. Why? There is no moral qualities discussed in the school. There's no discussions whatsoever, Rabotai, regarding these issues. And all of it because there is no shame. People could do anything they want, where they want, how they want. And how do I know that? You go and see an animal going to bathroom publicly. Have you ever seen that the animal would be like watching around, somebody sees her or not? Animal has no doubt. It has a reflex. Once it has the reflex says, you want to go to bathroom? He goes right away to bathroom where he's supposed to go. He doesn't want, even the people walking by, and he's open with genitals, opened. There's no busha. By animal, there is no such a thing as shame. Why? Because it's animal. People went down to this grade. They have no shame anymore. They could kiss each other and hug each other outside. Forget about the husband and the wife. Even strange women with strange men. No shame. Publicly. And sometimes they could do znut publicly also. No shame. So that's why Bereshit consists from two words. Boshet Yira. Because otherwise there's no world. There's no normal world. Hashem created this world to have a shame a little bit. Because the shame, the power of the shame, prevents you from averot. That's all. The fear and the shame prevents you from averot. And since Hashem wants us to be tzaddikim, Rabotai, we should find out how to acquire this quality, this trait of character to ourselves. We have to acquire this. We have to have a shame. Not everything you want to say, you're allowed to say. Sometimes you want to say such a hard words, but not everything you're allowed to say. Or speaking about somebody. Are you not ashamed? You're speaking about somebody, you're judging someone. How do you know you're right? Maybe you're wrong. How could you judge someone? Do you know the whole story? No, you heard it from someone. And now you're already like maybe fifth or sixth person who retells the story again and again. How could you judge? You're not ashamed. And everything comes from small things, Rabotai. So try to start a small thing for Hashem, how to be shamed. Gemara says, even to sit in a bathroom, a person should not reveal himself totally, completely. Only what he needs for the purpose of the bathroom. That he should not become dirty. Walking naked in a house, no shame. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I hate people who don't cover themselves in time of intimate relationships. Gemara says, the four people Hashem hates and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai doesn't like them. What four people Hashem hates? The person who mishamesh mitato arum, person who is totally naked, revealed, when he performs intimate relationship with his wife. Why? You show no shame. It's an act of mitzvah. It's an act of mitzvah of priya urviya. So you should cover yourself. Somebody asked me, it's very hard, Rabbi, to think about those things at that moment. I know it's very hard. But you know, because of BUSHA, when a person has BUSHA, he has a tzniut, he has a big merits. It says because of tzniut that Rachel Imenu had, the first king of Am Yisrael became from her sons, from Binyamin. Who was a Shaul HaMelech, first king of Am Yisrael, from her sons, tzniut. And because of tzniut of Shaul, the queen of the world, Esther HaMalka, she was a queen of the world because of his tzniut. Don't you want your kids to be king and queen? Huh? You want. So have a shame. All the halachic questions you could ask later. But I'm just telling to you as topics, headlines, you know, in order that's just to structure, to understand that, what this shame is. Because we don't see that shame around us so much, so we get used to living in such a society, so we're becoming part of it. That's wrong. Next week, we're putting a first candle on Motzei Shabbat. We're going to have shiur here at 9 o'clock also. Why it's oil? Nes na'asa b'shemin. Why? It says in Midrash, Israel nimshilu l'shemen zayit. Am Yisrael, they look like a shemen zayit. They're like an olive oil. Like an olive oil, you never could mix with water. No matter how much olive oil you put in the water and you mix it, it goes like small balls, you know, oil balls, but then it goes up and always floats on top of the water. We're always on top of the nations. And it connects with each other and becomes one big oil piece, right? So that's how we are. We cannot mix in. We cannot mix in with other nations. Why? Because we have our qualities. We have our good things. But let's say, in our generation, many people degrade it. They go down on a daily basis, and they lose themselves because of that. So if the person not going to stop him on certain point, he's going to lose it. He's going to lose it. And then it's going to be big shame for that person. Yeh ratzon that we should have yir'ah on our face. We should have a fear of Hashem, fear of greatness, that comes from the shame in front of Hashem. And sometimes a person wants to scream to his spouse, right? Say something sharp. Don't say it. Why? Shame. Have a shame. Hashem is here. Hashem is listening to us. And you know, sometimes you could calm down your fight. If some of you, or husband or wife, says, you know what, let's not scream. Hashem is hearing us. Really. Hashem hears us, and I don't want Hashem to be upset with us. And this comes down everything. You see how many benefits you have from a shame. And without Hashem, Hashem should help us have a shame and not to lose it. Baruch Adonai L'olam, Amen, Amen. Thank you.